Sent that to him. That was on a Wednesday, probably the same day I think it was I did those remixes before I went to the studio. And then he heard it on that Friday because they overnighted him. And then by Wednesday of the next week, I was being flown to New York to work on Outlaw. But I didn't know what we were going to work on at the time, but it turned out to be Outlaw. And I get to the studio and he's like, Mosey, what's up? And hugging me and like super like just charged up and made me amped up like, oh wow, you know, the whole energy just picked up and we vibed. And he was asking me about the tracks that I had on the cassette. He said it was one in particular that he really wanted, and I kept going through my discs and this one? I said, no, I like that one too, but that's not the one, And then he just got the cassette and played it, and I said, oh, actually, I did that track for an R&B singer. He was supposed to write to it, and he couldn't come up with anything, so he gave me the cassette back. I actually was just taping over that tape. And he heard that, he said, well, it's a rap now, nigga. And I was like, whoa.
This is a J-Mix exclusive.
And then that exact same day, he told me that From the Cradle to the Grave was going to be the first single, and they were going to take the other version off the album and put mine on the album, and they were going to release it. So, and I mean, as soon as I got home from New York, maybe a couple of days later, I was hearing From the Cradle to the Grave. And I was like, wow, a week goes by, and now I'm on the radio. It was incredible.
Well, how long was it from the time that Tupac was listening to, was it a demo or an album put out by radio?
It was an album that we were working on, and he was hearing the material from the studio.
Okay. How long was that until you heard it, you went and produced and then heard your track on the radio?
It was a week and a half.
Wow. That's quick.
From him hearing it to me having that From the Cradle to the Grave on the radio was a week and a half. I could not believe it.
Now, you brought up Outlaw. What's the story behind that session and Rah Rah? Can you tell us a little bit about Rah Rah?
Well, see, now Rah Rah, I didn't know. I didn't know him, and I didn't know the guy that did the game ain't the same, the roster part. These were guys that Tupac knew from the street. He was on his way to the studio. The little boy said he wanted to go. So he said, come on. And the other guy, he wanted to go. He said, come on. And he really was, you know, trying to find something for them to do on it. And he bounced around ideas, and he goes, what about that Snoop where he goes, I think, was it The Game Ain't the Same? Was it The Game Ain't the Same?
Oh, I can't remember.
I think it was something like that. And well, anyway, he flipped. I think it was something that Snoop did. He flipped that to make that, and he said, "I'm gonna have the little boy say it." Oh, the dear God, I wanted to. Yes, and the little boy couldn't say it by himself, so he stood behind him at the mic and said it with him. So like when you hear their voices together, they actually did it together because he was like, "Dear God, I wonder, can you know, helping them do it," and it was cool. It was fast.
What do you think that, because all these years later and the legendary status that he hit, what do you think at this point that people's biggest misconception is when it comes to Tupac?
That he's inhuman. You know, like a lot of people put a whole lot of extra on him. Like, you know, I've heard people say stuff like, you know, he's like Jesus, he's like God, you know. And he really was a regular person who had feelings and knew how to express them. And it's just, and people really thought that he was like a mean, evil person. Like they kept asking me, were you okay in the studio? He didn't like pull a gun on you? And I'm like, no. He looked up to me. He was like my friend. We kept in touch, and when they had to go to the studio, I would page him and wake them up. he would say, "Page me, wake us up so we can get to the studio, Mo. We got to be on time." And so it was that kind of a relationship. And you know, if you don't really know him and you listen to the songs, you think that he is those songs and the characters that he play in those movies. And he is really a person who can express and also make people feel the emotion of what he's talking about, because it's stuff that people go through. People have gone through or are going through, so they feel it and they think, oh my gosh, he's, you know, they just put super extra on it. But he was a man, he was a human, he had feelings, he was just like all of us. He was tender at times, he was strong at times, he was mad at times, he was crazy at times. We all go through it. We just don't have to go through the press, you know what I mean? The press don't get to see it.
Did you ever see his temper?
Never. I heard his temper when he was in jail and we were trying to record this song. We had the Outlaws on it and Thug Life. They were both on it, all of them, and we were trying to get Pac's vocal over the phone to rap on it. Now, if I had really thought, I could have sent him a cassette and he could have listened to it in the headphones or whatever. But we tried to do it over the phone where they mic'd the telephone in the booth and then they played the sound through the thing. So it was like a delay going to him and then his delay coming back, and you hear it all on the phone. And so we were like, I don't think we're going to be able to do this. And then the last words I ever heard him say was, "Fuck!" Like he was mad, really mad. That was the only time. Other than that, I didn't really see it. It was really workaholic, you know.
Fair enough. You're one of the few producers that Pac worked with while he was alive that remixed his work for release. What was his favorite track from you? Did he ever say?
He never said, no. It was because things were moving so fast. The ones we ended up doing, there was only one that was on that cassette other than Outlaw that ended up being done, and it was for the Outlaws album when it was called Dramacidal.
Yes.
And I didn't actually do the track. My guy, Lamorius Tyler, did the track, and they wanted me to sing the hook, so I sang the hook on it. But the hook was written by Pac and Edie. And so they were rapping on that. But other than that, we did all of the tracks there. Like he'd go, you know, I got this idea. And I go, oh, okay, and we do it. You know. With the exception of Young Niggas. He gave me a cassette of Cameo's "She's Strange" and said, take this back and make a beat, I'll flip it so we can make a song off of it. Oh, okay. And at the time we were recording Sucker for Love, the original version. I did the original version of that. And that night he gave me that cassette. So I took my equipment was broke at the time, so I went to my friend Lamorius Tyler house and programmed it on his equipment. And then he added some stuff to it, and the next day we went to the studio and dropped it. But everything else was really on the spot.
No doubt. Was it common for him to ask you to like take a beat and flip it around? I know he did it a lot at Death Row with other artists' music such as Nas. He would flip one of his beats. That was common for him to do.
Yep, we did one that he had me flip that Bonnie and Clyde. Now I can't remember the song because I don't think it got released. And then he had me flip Street Life, and we made Thug Life off of that. And I think a few of them were like flip this into that. Yeah.